All right, get ready to dive into the world of spy wars.
Yeah, spy wars.
Specifically, we're looking at the rivalry between the FSB and the CIA,
Right.
and we've got a whole stack of articles and reports you sent us about how all of this plays into the conflicts in the Middle East,
Yeah,
especially those that impact Israel.
definitely.
Buckle up. This is going to be a wild ride.
What's interesting is, this isn't just some like new Cold War situation, right?
Okay.
This goes way back, like decades back.
Yeah, so set the stage for us.
Okay.
What's the historical backdrop for all this?
Okay, so think Cold War, right?
Mm.
You've got the U.S. and the Soviet Union locked in this ideological battle,
Mm-hmm.
both trying to like expand their influence.
Yeah.
In the Middle East, it's just so strategically important.
Right.
And the politics are volatile.
Yeah.
It became this prime battleground for intelligence agencies.
So the Cold War wasn't just speeches and nuclear threats.
Oh, no.
It was also spies sneaking around,
Absolutely.
trying to outsmart each other.
Yeah. It was all happening behind the scenes.
Yeah.
So there's this recently published book, FSB versus CIA, The Hidden Spy War in the Middle East and its impact on the Israel conflicts.
Yeah.
And it lays out how the U.S., through the CIA, was trying to contain communism
Right.
and often backed, regimes that were against Soviet influence.
Yeah.
The Soviets, though, were pushing their own ideology, like socialist ideology,
Okay.
and they used the KGB, which later became the FSB, to counter the West.
So basically, the Middle East became like this proxy battleground
Yeah,
for these global superpowers, and their spy agencies were right in the middle of it.
absolutely.
And you're saying that this dynamic is still impacting the region today.
Oh, for sure, for
Yeah.
sure. The end of the Cold War didn't just wipe everything clean,
Right.
The networks, the tactics, the distrust, it's all still there. If anything, it's more complex now.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got the historical context,
Right.
but let's get into the CIA and the FSB themselves. What are the big differences between these two?
So on the surface, they might look similar, right? Intelligence gathering, covert operations, the whole spy thing.
Yeah.
But their approaches, their goals, even how they're organized, it's all quite different.
All right, unpack that for us. What makes them tick?
Okay, so the CIA
Yeah.
started in 1947, and they were all about countering the Soviets.
Right.
Think covert operations to influence elections, support regimes they liked, destabilize the ones they didn't.
Wow.
And they were more global, operating everywhere.
Oh.
The FSB, though, they came right from the QLB.
Hmm.
They inherited these vast networks, especially in the Middle East.
Right.
Their focus is more about Russia's interests,
Okay.
propping up allied regimes, countering the West in their own backyard.
So they're both products of their history and where they stand in the world.
Exactly.
And these differences, they really show when you look at some of the key historical events in the region.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, what are some of those events that highlight how these agencies have been involved?
Well, one big one is the 1953 Iranian coup.
Okay.
It's in a lot of the articles you sent.
Yeah.
The CIA played a big part in overthrowing Prime Minister Mossadegh, who had nationalized the oil industry.
Right.
That threatened the West,
Yeah.
It really shows how intelligence agencies can directly impact politics through covert operations.
It's crazy how something that happened decades ago
I know.
can still be affecting things today.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
And then you have the Six-Day War in 1967, totally changed the balance of power.
Right.
The CIA and KGB, that's the FSB's predecessor, they were all over this conflict, trying to figure out what was happening, trying to get an edge for their side.
It sounds like this was a big turning point.
Oh, it was.
Really ramped up the intelligence war.
It did.
Wow.
And just a little over 10 years later, you have the Iranian Revolution in 1979.
Right.
Huge setback for the CIA. They lost a key ally in the Shah.
Yeah.
And a huge opportunity for the KGB to gain influence. The revolution just goes to show how unpredictable the Middle East is
Right.
and how intelligence agencies have to be on their toes.
Constantly adapting.
Yeah,
So it's like a never-ending game of chess.
it is.
Both sides trying to outmaneuver each other,
Exactly.
but with real-world consequences.
Oh, yeah.
Wow. Okay, so we've seen how these historical events have kept this rivalry going.
Yeah.
But what are some of the things these agencies actually do?
Okay.
The nitty-gritty. How do they exert their influence?
Well, covert operations are at the heart of it.
All right, hold on.
Yeah.
Before we go any further, let's define that.
Good point.
What are covert operations in the Middle East?
Okay, so in this context,
Mhm.
covert operations mean taking secret action to influence things
Okay.
without leaving a trace of involvement, like a hidden hand,
Right.
shaping politics, maybe even toppling regimes.
So world of intrigue, manipulation, things like that.
Absolutely.
where it's hard to know what's really going on
For sure.
and who's responsible.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, wow.
This book, FSB versus CIA, it goes into detail about how these covert operations can take different forms.
Right.
Sabotage, misinformation campaigns, supporting rebels, even assassinations.
Right.
It's a high-stakes game where the rules are always changing.
Yeah, and the players are hidden.
They are.
It's kind of unsettling to think about this happening all the time.
Yeah.
Just under the surface of what we see on the news.
It's a reality.
Right.
And both the CIA and FSB, they're pros at this decades of experience, vast networks of people.
Yeah.
They're always adapting to how things change in the Middle East.
Okay, so we've got covert operations, but what about technology?
Right.
We live in a digital world now where information is power.
It is.
How has that changed things?
That's where things get really interesting.
Right.
The digital revolution, it's changed espionage completely. Cyber espionage is the big battleground now for both the CIA and FSB.
Okay, this is where I geek out a little. Cyber espionage?
Yeah.
It sounds so high-tech,
It is.
like something out of a movie.
Yeah. Imagine stealing secrets, disrupting your enemy, even changing elections,
Right.
all from a computer thousands of miles away.
Wow.
That's the power of cyber espionage.
Yeah.
Both agencies have put a lot of resources into it.
So instead of sending agents to break into embassies,
Right.
they're sending, like, bits and bytes
Exactly.
to get what they want.
And it's so hard to trace
Right.
a very deniable form of warfare,
Yeah.
a level of secrecy they couldn't have dreamed of before.
So the digital age has given these agencies a whole new set of tools,
did.
making the intelligence war even more complicated
Absolutely.
and even harder to predict.
Yeah.
Wow.
And these tools are always changing, which brings us to the next level, emerging technologies.
Okay, hold that thought. We'll
Right.
dive into that next time.
That's good.
But for now, let's take a minute to process all this
Yeah.
about history, the players, their tactics,
Right.
and how the digital world has changed everything.
Absolutely.
Don't go anywhere, listeners.
Yeah. Stay tuned.
We're going even deeper into this rabbit hole,
That's right.
exploring the impact of emerging tech
Hmm.
and how this spy war is directly impacting the conflicts in the Middle East, especially those with Israel.
Looking forward to it.
We'll see you soon.
See ya. Welcome back to our deep dive.
Back into the world of espionage.
Yeah, before we went down this rabbit hole, we were talking about how tech has really changed the game.
Right, between the FSB and the CIA.
Yeah.
I'm already picturing like Mission Impossible scenes, hackers and crazy gadgets.
Yeah.
Is that what it's really like?
Well, the reality might not be so glamorous,
Okay.
but it's definitely impactful.
Right.
We're talking about emerging tech that's changing how intelligence gathering and covert operations work.
Okay, so break it down for us. What technologies are we talking about?
Okay, so first you have artificial intelligence, AI.
Right.
Basically machines that can learn and do things humans usually do.
Yeah.
In espionage, that means AI can analyze tons of data. Social media posts, satellite images, you name it.
Oh,
And it can find patterns, predict what's going to happen, even manipulate information.
So it's like having this super-powered analyst
Yeah.
who never takes a break.
Exactly.
That's got to be huge for the CIA and FSB.
It is.
They can process so much information so fast.
Way faster than humans. And it's not just about speed.
Right.
It's about how sophisticated it is.
Okay.
Like facial recognition tech.
Yeah.
AI can pick someone out of a crowd, even with a mask on.
That's crazy.
It changes everything for surveillance and counterterrorism.
So Big Brother's getting a serious upgrade.
You could say that.
Wow.
And it's not just AI. We also have big data.
Right. All the info that's constantly being generated.
Yeah. Everything online shopping, location data.
Yeah.
It's a goldmine for intelligence agencies.
Okay.
By analyzing it, they can find trends, predict behavior, even uncover hidden connections.
It's a bit scary to think about all that data being collected.
It does raise ethical questions.
Right. About privacy and stuff.
For sure.
Yeah.
But you can't deny that big data is a crucial tool now
Right.
for intelligence agencies.
Okay. So we've got AI and big data, but we were talking about cyber warfare before.
Right.
How does that fit into all this?
Cyber warfare is the new frontier of espionage. It lets states attack each other in ways that are hard to trace back.
Okay.
Hacking infrastructure, stealing information, spreading fake news, even messing with elections.
So it's not just about getting secrets anymore. It's
Yeah.
about disrupting the other side.
Exactly.
Ah.
And the FSB has really stepped up their game here.
Okay.
They've been linked to some major cyber attacks.
Like what?
Well, there was the NotPetya attack in 2017.
Right.
Most people think it was the FSB.
Okay.
It cost businesses billions of dollars worldwide.
Wow.
Shows you how cyber warfare can disrupt the global economy.
Yeah, that's a scary thought.
It is.
What about the CIA? Are they in the cyber warfare game too?
Oh, absolutely. They've put a lot into cyber capabilities. Both for attack and defense, they're focused on protecting the U.S. in cyberspace
Right.
and countering threats from places like Russia and China.
So it's like a digital arms race.
It is. Each side is trying to build better cyber weapons and defenses.
Yeah.
The stakes are incredibly high because this could easily turn into a real-world conflict.
With real consequences.
Exactly.
Okay, so AI, big data, and cyber warfare. It seems like the world of espionage is getting more complicated all the time.
It is.
So how does all this technology impact the Middle East, specifically Israel?
Well, you have to remember, Israel is surrounded by enemies.
Right.
Intelligence is crucial for them to survive.
Yeah.
They've always been at the forefront of technology,
Oh.
and they've adapted to the challenges of cyber warfare quickly.
So they're using this tech to defend themselves against groups like Hezbollah and Hamas.
Exactly.
Okay.
Israel has some sophisticated defenses to protect their infrastructure,
Right.
and counter cyber attacks. They're also using AI and big data to analyze intelligence, track terrorist networks, even predict attacks.
Wow. It's like they're playing cyber chess.
They are.
Yeah.
But they're not just playing defense. Some people accuse them of launching their own attacks, too.
Do you have any examples?
One of the most well-known is the Stuxnet worm,
Right.
supposedly developed by the U.S. and Israel to sabotage Iran's nuclear program.
Okay.
It was a big moment in cyber warfare.
Yeah.
Showed how you can cause real-world damage digitally.
That's a bold move.
It is.
It really shows what's at stake here.
It does.
So how does the FSB-CIA rivalry play into all this?
Well, both Russia and the U.S. have interests in the Middle East.
Right.
Russia has been getting closer to Iran, which worries Israel.
Yeah.
And the U.S. is still a key ally for Israel,
Okay.
providing military and intelligence support.
So the FSB and CIA are competing in the Middle East,
They are.
trying to influence things and support their own sides.
Exactly. And this rivalry is getting more and more tied to the cyber domain. Both agencies are using cyber to spy on each other. Right.
Disrupt operations, even influence what happens in the region.
It's like chess on multiple levels, with political, military, and cyber moves.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
And the outcome of this game has huge implications for the Middle East,
Right.
including the conflicts involving Israel.
Okay, we've talked about a lot.
We have.
AI, big data, cyber warfare.
Mm-hmm.
It's clear that tech is changing how the FSB and CIA operate.
For sure.
And that has big implications for the Middle East, especially Israel.
Absolutely.
But how does all this play out in the media? How does all this get portrayed?
Good question.
And how does that shape how we understand this world of espionage?
Right.
We'll explore those questions when we come back for the final part of our deep dive.
Looking forward to it.
Don't go anywhere. Welcome back, deep divers.
Yeah, welcome back.
Before we went down that rabbit hole of cyber warfare, we were talking about how the media portrays all of this.
Right.
These intelligence agencies, and how that affects what we think about this spy versus spy world. Yeah, and it's important to remember that even when the media is trying to be factual, they often use narratives and tropes that can really simplify things
Okay.
or exaggerate or even totally misrepresent what espionage is really like.
So let's unpack that.
Yep.
Let's start with the CIA.
Right.
How do movies and TV usually portray them?
Well, think of your classic spy movie.
Yeah.
You've got that suave agent,
Right.
all the gadgets, always one step ahead,
Yeah.
pulling off these crazy missions against all odds.
Right.
The CIA is usually portrayed as like super competent,
Yeah.
almost superhuman,
Right.
always fighting for justice.
It's like James Bond, but with less martinis and more tech.
Exactly. And while it's fun to watch,
Mhm.
it creates this image of the CIA that's not very realistic.
Right.
Real intelligence work is messy,
Yeah.
and the morality is often questionable,
Right.
and it's rarely that glamorous.
So it's not all gadgets and escapes.
No.
What about the FSB? How do they get portrayed?
The FSB often gets the villain role, especially in Western media.
Okay.
They're usually these shadowy figures
Right.
lurking around,
Yeah.
pulling strings, manipulating things, being ruthless.
Like in those old Cold War movies where the KGB was always the enemy?
Exactly.
So they're the bad guys trying to destroy democracy and freedom.
Well, it's not that simple.
Right.
Like any intelligence agency,
Yeah.
the FSB is acting in their own national interest.
Okay.
And those interests don't always match up with Western values.
Right.
But to just call them the bad guys is way too simplistic.
It's all about perspective.
It is.
One country's spy is another country's hero or something.
Right.
But even if these portrayals are exaggerated or biased, they must have some effect on how we see these agencies.
They do.
And what they do.
Absolutely.
Right.
These media narratives, they get into our heads.
Yeah.
They change how we interpret things, even if we don't realize it.
Okay.
They can shape public opinion, reinforce biases, and even affect policy decisions.
Do you have an example of how this is played out in the Middle East?
Sure. Look at the coverage of the Syrian civil war.
Okay.
A lot of media framed it as a proxy war
Right.
between the U.S. backing the rebels and Russia supporting Assad. And intelligence agencies were seen as playing a key role.
Okay.
The CIA supporting anti-Assad groups, the FSB propping up the regime.
So it wasn't just two countries fighting.
Right.
It was their spy agencies fighting in the shadows.
Exactly. And even though these narratives oversimplify things,
Right.
they can influence public opinion about the conflict, maybe even lead to support for military intervention
Right.
or other policies that aren't good for anyone.
So it's like this feedback loop.
It is.
The media portrays things a certain way.
Which affects what people think, which affects government policies,
Right.
which then has real-world consequences.
And often unintended consequences.
Exactly.
It's a tough cycle to break.
It is.
And it shows how important it is to be aware of these media narratives.
Yes.
And to really think about the information we're getting.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we've explored the history, the agencies, their tactics, the impact of technology, and how media shapes our understanding.
Right.
What does it all mean for the listener, especially someone interested in Israel?
Well, for anyone trying to understand the Middle East,
Right.
especially the challenges Israel faces, the FSB-CIA rivalry is a big part of it.
Okay.
It's not just history, it's still happening.
Yeah.
With real consequences for the region.
And as we've seen, it's constantly changing.
It is.
With tech, shifting alliances, and the media always influencing things.
That's right.
It's a lot to keep track of.
It is, which makes it even more important to stay informed.
Right.
To be critical of the information we see and not fall for easy answers to complicated problems.
All right, folks, we've covered a lot today.
We have.
From the Cold War to cyber warfare.
Yeah.
From covert ops to media manipulation.
It's been a journey.
It really has. A big thank you to our expert for guiding us through all this.
My pleasure.
It's a fascinating but kind of unsettling world.
It is, but remember, knowledge is power.
Right.
Understanding these hidden conflicts helps us make better decisions about the world.
And on that note, we'll leave you with a final thought.
Okay.
As technology keeps advancing, blurring the lines between the physical and digital, what new challenges and opportunities will pop up in the world of espionage?
Interesting question.
How will the FSB and CIA adapt?
Right.
And how will it all affect the balance of power in the Middle East?
Right.
And the conflicts that are shaping the region's future?
It's a lot to think about.
It is.
Oh.
Keep exploring, deep divers, because the answers are still being written.